Hello and welcome to the Healed Approach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Heald, and in this series, in partnership with the Facade Collective, we are going to be focusing on the phenomenal women in construction, highlighting their pivotal roles in an industry where they lead with resilience and innovation. This is a celebration of their achievements and a call to action for true equity in traditionally male-dominated fields. Join us as we uncover the stories of these inspiring women, the challenges they've overcome and the transformative impact they're making. With every story shared, we're constructing a future where everyone has the foundation to build their dreams. Let's embark on this revolutionary journey together. Hello and welcome to the Healed Approach podcast. Today I'm joined by Justin Murray. Justin, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
So I got Justin on, so that sounds really, that sounds a little bit, I don't know what that sounds like. But anyway, I connected with Justin a bit ago and was really impressed by his passion and approach to sustainability. So I've asked him to come on the podcast to share what he is doing. So let me just introduce him first. So he's got over 30 years of executive experience, and he brings a strong blend of innovation, strategic vision, and unwavering dedication to excellence across every project that he does. So he's the co-founder of Cube Buildings, and he's passionate about transforming the construction industry through sustainable solutions. So herein, you can understand why it is that we got on so well. Together with his business partner, Jaffa Orange, they have invented the BioSip system, which is a state-of-the-art sustainable building solution that utilises natural and recycled materials along with self-assembly techniques to create high-performance modular structures. As a qualified passive house consultant, Justin is deeply committed to promoting energy-efficient and eco-friendly building practices. The BioSip vision is clear: to lead in providing affordable, sustainable, cost-effective building solutions that cater to both temporary and long-term needs, with a strong emphasis on environmental responsibility. So, Justin, please, because, like I said to you, I think your values, your principles, what you're trying to do in the industry is in so much alignment with where I'm trying to go with things. And I'm learning so much every single day. And I just, can you share with listeners, please, what it is that you're doing, what the BioSip sustainable building system is and what that potentially means?
Well, the BioSips really sort of come from frustration, I suppose, in the building industry, that there is no real genuinely sustainable building system out there that can be easily assembled and put together. And the embodied energy or embodied carbon in buildings hasn't been properly sort of calculated yet, and this really needs to be taken into consideration. So just out of frustration, I decided to my previous business sort of fell off a cliff during COVID and retrained as a passive house consultant to understand why and how to build houses more efficiently, not just on its running costs, but also how we can actually physically build and construct houses, but not just houses, structures from genuinely sustainable products. So we looked into various materials, and we've ended up using recycled plastic bottles as our insulating core, and we're using flax and hemp because they are very fast growing renewable materials that also sequester a lot of CO2. In fact, I think they sequester something like 160% of its own weight in CO2. And it takes about between 10 and 12 weeks to grow. So unlike wood, which takes 25 years, and if you try to grow it too fast, it becomes very weak and, it's lost its primary purpose, which is structure. So we really wanted to go around and invent something which can be genuinely sustainable, very good thermal performance, and also that can be assembled very, very quickly. So we've ended up coming up with the BioSip product, and has the three principles of passive house, in its own in its own right. So structure, thermal, and air tightness in a single component. So and that's really where we are. We've called it a biosip product. So SIP stands for structural insulated panel, and the bio because it's made from, the skins are made from natural materials, and we're using a bio resin to sort of bind all the hemp and stuff together.
Amazing. And you mentioned about how obviously you researched the materials and came up with this solution. You've explained obviously some of the advantages to using hemp, and which you explained to me a little bit before, which was fascinating. Are there any kind of potential drawbacks to it? Is there anything you can foresee being an issue with it, or is it is this something that really could kind of innovate what we're doing in the industry?
Well, I mean, we're really hopeful that the industry will see what we're doing and start adopting it, really, because it kind of ticks all the boxes. This is innovation, and the problem is with the building sector, they don't like risk. In fact, they don't take risk. It's zero, zero risk, which is really what's kind of created the problem that we have now, because we've been building houses the same way for 3,000 years, and it's like, well, we've always done it this way, so we're never going to change. But
Yeah.
that's going to have to change between now and 2050, because we're supposed to be completely carbon neutral in 26 years' time, and the construction sector contributes a whopping 39% of carbon emissions globally. It's off the scale. If you compare that to, let's say, the aviation industry, the whole aviation industry is 3% of global
Yeah.
emissions. So, you would have thought that taking 5% reduction in the construction and the build sector would be really low-hanging fruit. So, the barriers for us have mostly been, I mean, the development of the biosip has been done. We've passed fire tests, which are as important as they've always been, but more so since Grenfell. But where we're sort of struggling with a little bit is that the build sector just doesn't want to take risks. They're not going to go first. And we're talking to lots of developers and people and say, it's an amazing product. That's great. It ticks all the boxes. We need exactly what it is. It's sustainable. We're using recycled materials because, there's no point recycling materials unless we recycle them.
Yeah.
Only 9% of our materials or plastic that we think we are recycling is actually getting recycled. Otherwise, it's just all going into landfill or getting incinerated or getting chucked into the oceans. 9%. That's globally. It's woeful. We must find a use for all this plastic.
Mm.
We will always have plastic. We are living a dream if we don't think we're always going to have plastic. So what we need to do is find a use for all this plastic and putting it and storing it inside a building that's going to last 100 years, 150 years, let's say, is a great way of doing something with it.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, no, it's really interesting, and I'm glad that we've kind of picked up on this, because this is something that I definitely wanted to go the route that I wanted to go down, because I think there are so many. I mean, you've touched on there, about. I want to come back to plastic, so don't let me forget to talk about that. But you've touched on there. What I find as well in the industry is, this fear to do things differently, this fear to take risks. It is really frustrating, and I think, for me, I think it comes down. Obviously, there are lots of other things at play. There are systemic things at play. There's so much legislation, so many guidelines and things that we've got to play with, or got to adhere to, should I say. But then, of course, you've got cultures that aren't perhaps encouraging this creativity and this innovation as much as they could be doing. Okay, so let just for example, I talk and I do a lot around diversity in the industry, and I advocate for having more women in the industry. But this isn't just about women. This is about a man and a woman thing. Okay, it's about all of us, working together in unity to get the best out of what we're doing. But if we haven't got that diversity of thought within our executive teams, within our leadership teams, then how are we ever going to see outside the box and see the blind spots that we've got? And we're going to struggle to take risks, and we're going to struggle to do that and see the benefits that actually that could, and I think that that's something that is really frustrating. And I think that's why with what I'm doing, because obviously I'm an advocate for sustainability. I think we need to be looking at ways to do things better. I don't think it's
Sorry.
okay. I don't think, we don't need to be looking at overcomplicated ways of doing things.
Yeah.
The answers are quite often quite simple,
Yeah.
but it's a mindset shift, isn't it? And that's why, for me, it's so important that we do that work on cultures, on people, on leadership, because otherwise, how are we going to drive all of this innovation forward? And, and this does lead me on to a little bit about what you were talking about, plastic, because again, there is this, I come up across this a lot. There's this snobbery almost, or this lack of understanding about plastic, and how actually, we shouldn't be turning our nose up at using it in our building practices. It has, for example, I've been doing some work with a sustainable window supplier, and we've been talking about, the composite and the fact that, the composite contains some UPVC, but this means that it's cheaper. It means that it's going to last longer. It's going to perform better. And we're doing something with that plastic rather than just putting it into landfill. It's circularity. Okay.
Yes.
And we need to be thinking about it outside.
Yeah.
I'm going off. Sorry. But I was speaking yesterday. So I'm doing a sustainability workshop for schools at Construction Week in a couple of weeks. And I've got an amazing girl who I'm hoping is going to come on my podcast to come and work with me on it. She's an engineer, and she works for a company that are, really plugging net zero. And she said to me, she's on the same page with me when it comes to plastic. She says, we always think, oh, we'll go for the bottle because the bottle is, the glass bottle, sorry, because it's more sustainable than the plastic bottle. But the glass bottle, you're going to use once, you're going to throw away. It has used so much more energy to produce it. Whereas a recycled bottle, you're going to, there's the plastic bottle you're going to use over and over. So sometimes we're just short-sighted and we're not looking at the bigger picture. Sorry, I've gone on a few tangents.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing that you said. It's about leadership, isn't it? It's about embracing innovation. I mean, the government, various governments, always thinking that innovation is going to solve the problem. I think we sort of need to almost draw a line in the sand, saying, okay, well, look, let's stop dreaming about innovation or technology that doesn't exist yet that's going to solve the problem, and just use the technology and innovation that we have right now to solve the problems, because there is loads of people trying to innovate and trying to use recycled materials within the the built environment, and just get on with it, because these are all great solutions. But they, getting certification, and no one wants to go first. That's the thing. No one wants to take that risk, and it actually stems all the way down to things like mortgage companies and insurers. And I think what will happen in 10, 15 years' time, that government will end up legislating that various necessities for sustainability, and actually force insurers and mortgage companies to look at non-standard construction, because until they start underwriting and insuring these things, no one's going to be building them.
Yeah,
and they're going to be
that's a
doing the
very good point.
same thing every day, and they'll continue to do it until they're forced to do it. And that's leadership. That's good leadership from a legislative perspective. But the house builders and the developers, they don't want to change, because it's like, well, this has always worked for us. But in the next 10 years, I read a horrible statistic that the average bricklayer is 52 years old.
Yeah,
And in 10 years time, that will be 67, 68. I mean, this is physically hard work. A 67-year-old can't work 8 hours a day, in 30-degree heat, laying bricks. We need to find other solutions, and there are out there. Our product, for instance, our biosip product, we use 2,000 plastic bottles per panel, and it's made from 88% waste materials. So that's a lot of waste materials that have been repurposed into a building product that can then be stored and used for 100 years.
yeah,
And we're talking about building 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years. Well, I don't think they're going to do that in the next 10 years. I mean, because for lots of reasons. There's not enough bricks, there's not enough skills, because we've told the Europeans to go away, all this very skilled labor to go away, and we don't want them. So now we're sort of don't have the skills, and it once again comes down to leadership. Very poor leadership all the way through. Having, what's it, 5, 6, 7 housing ministers in 10 years.
yeah.
It's ludicrous.
Well, I think that lack of stability from the top obviously does
Mm.
filter
Of course it does.
down.
Well, it has done, and now it's impacted us, and it's compounding and compounding. And the current government has got to do something about it, because at the current building rate, versus the increase in population, you're gonna the councils are going to spend something like £2,000 million this year on temporary accommodation. Now that's basically putting people into hotels and Airbnbs and bed and breakfasts. And I think we've got the highest homelessness rate in the developed world by 50%,
Mm.
per capita. So it's shameful, and shelter is something that's never going to change. We are always going to need shelter, and that's why the biosip product is a great product, because it's designed for fast assembly, reusing and recycling lots of materials, and using all this plastic that we have to find a use for.
How does it? So, how does your system, I guess, compare to a traditional building? What would people notice?
Oh, nothing. They wouldn't notice any difference. I mean, it's, because you end up putting a facade at the front and then you sort of paint the inside. I mean, I think with our system, with our biosip system, we are trying to not use plaster, that we can paint straight onto our natural fibre surface. But then, of course, what you'll end up seeing a joint. So, people don't want joints. But, the problem, we have to kind of change our sort of our visual aspects. I mean, we're conditioned to having a nice plastered wall, for instance, but of course, from a circularity perspective, it's not great, because you've got to recycle that at the end of life in 100 years' time, let's say. So the idea is that with our biosip product, that it's all mechanically fixed together, and then it's also can be then mechanically disassembled and either repurposed or recycled.
Can you
Um,
tell us? Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that, about the process? It's interesting because I was telling my son about it when we was going on holiday, and he couldn't get his head around it. He was like, "What?" Like,
yeah, well, I mean, obviously, it's, 'cause it's commercially some sensitive information there, so I can't divulge too much.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
we've designed the biosip product to be a mass-produced panel. It's just a panel.
Yeah.
It's not, it's and that panel we compress in about 7 minutes.
Okay.
We compress the panel in about 7 minutes, and we can then cut it and shape it and finish it in about 7 or 8 minutes as well. So a panel can take, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And that's done manually. Now, if we can do that, through automation, you could probably get that down to, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes.
Mm.
So you could, in theory, with the right production line, in a very small factory, because we're only making 8x4 sheets, we can actually press these panels, finish them, flat pack them with the lights out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we could be putting, I don't know, 100 homes a week, flat packing it and shipping it out, and that could be shipped. And these we can set up micro factories globally um, to press and to finish off these the biosip product ready for assembly. And it's like IKEA.
Yeah.
And the whole point is that these panels were lightweight, because in places, let's say like Gaza or in the Ukraine, they don't have all this lifting equipment, or in disaster zones, they don't have all this lifting equipment to lift all these, 70, 80 kilo panels. Each panel has been designed to try and keep underneath 50 kilos. So two people can sort of offload it off a truck and take that into the build environment, hold it in position, and then screw it together.
Mhm.
And that's it. So
That's what my son couldn't get his head around.
yeah, well, this is it. We
um,
try to make it really simple. I mean, part of the sort of passive
it's
house.
not because I don't think it's because it's not simple. I think
Mm,
it's because we're conditioned to think that houses need to be built with bricks.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's no perfect solution for all these things. I mean, brick is great. I mean, it's great if you want to last, 100 years, but it just does one thing. It's a structure. That's it. It's not, it's weather tight, okay, but it's not waterproof, and it's not, airtight, and it's not insulated. It doesn't look sort of that pretty unless you properly finish, one side of that. Although, so when we looked at the biostat, we think, okay, well, what can we, all the components that we need to build a wall, for instance, right? We need structure, we need insulation, we need airtight, we need it waterproof, we need it, fire retardant, we need all those things, right? How can we make that into a single product to make building really simple? Child's play. Literally, if you're a semi-skilled worker, you can say, okay, well, look, that panel goes there. There's all these pilot holes here. This is a screw, and I'll put those screws in. That's it. It's done. There's nothing else to do. Okay, I need to
And then,
paint it. On the inside of it. But that's it. I mean, it's to give you maybe some comparison. Okay, so you'll have a sort of typical wall build up. So you've got your brick, and then you've got your insulation, and then you've got your another load of brick, and then you've got like a breather membrane, and then you've got vapor control, and then you've got your plasterboard, and it's like you've got all these different trades suddenly coming in because they're all different skill sets, and you've got semi-skilled people putting these together, and taking months to do all those. I mean, you think, let's say a wooden structure, which is why we try to move away from wood, is that wood is a great, lovely material. It's structurally, it's pretty sound. It's obviously carbon negative,
mhm.
but you've got to keep it dry. You have to keep it dry, but it also has to breathe. So you can't. So you've suddenly got all these challenges to say, okay, well, I've got it's got to stay dry, it's got to breathe, and it's not thermally very good, but it's structurally great. So we need to add insulation into that as well. And suddenly you've got 12 different components within your wall build up. It's like, well, what could possibly go wrong? I mean, one of those elements, it's not been fitted properly. Let's say vapor control or a breather membrane, just been overlapped incorrectly. So then you've got water ingress coming into the structure, say the wooden structure. you won't know about it for 20 years until it's all rotten, because it's within the wall, and it's like, because you've paid some 25-year-old who is not been trained properly, not been supervised properly, probably doesn't speak English properly, and it's just said, right, go and do that. This is real world stuff. Go and staple all this vapor control or breather membrane on it, or this waterproofing on it, and you've got 5 houses to do, and you've got 4 days to go and do it. And that's the problem with the bill. And this is why you get lots of problems when you hear of these developers that have got all these inherent issues with, let's say, new build houses, because they're not being supervised properly and they're so
Yeah,
complicated.
yeah. I mean, I, I think I'm just trying to think how to kind of word this, because I think the issue that I tend to come across quite a lot is, like you say, it's everything looks good on paper, everything, kind of are we have the greatest plans and ideas when it comes to building, just in general, but then when you factor in all of the different people, all of the different trades, all of the different, that's when it all starts to fall apart, because
Yes.
there is, there's a lack of communication, there's a lack of understanding sometimes, not everybody is on the
Who's going
same
to take
page.
responsibility for this element? Oh no, that we haven't got a contractor for that. Okay, well, he who's not been trained properly, well, he could do that. He could, infill on that and stuff. So look, I mean, this is all problems that are all known, and this is how we've ended up arriving at our innovation, the biosip innovation, and also using sustainable materials. I mean, we have to use more sustainable materials, because if it's not sustainable, it's unsustainable.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think there are so many. The problem is the proof's going to be in the pudding, and you need somebody to kind of like think, right, I'm going to give this a go, because I think there is, you know, there are, there are so many different schools of thought, on sustainability. There are so many different perspectives on it. There are so many, there are people I know that, like yourself, and I'm speaking to other people that are looking at, modular construction, building with panels more sustainably. I tell you one thing that's another, but then you've got, sorry to go back, just to go back as well, is, but then you've got, obviously you've got your old school developers, you've got, your people that have always, your wet trades that are skeptical, I guess, that this new way of building is going to deliver. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do we know if it's going to deliver until we give it a chance? That's the one
Yeah.
thing. You've done all your vigorous testing. We need to
Mm.
go, right, okay, we need to just move forward with this. Okay, there may have been in the past, because I think sometimes go, oh, we've tried this before, we've tried that before, but technology moves on. We innovate, we move on, we learn, we develop. One of the other things, though, that I wanted to also kind of touch upon here, which I don't know if this is something, well, that you're coming across, but I also find that you've got, people like yourself that are trying to innovate in the industry, trying to look at more sustainable solutions, better solutions, but often you're quite small, your SMEs. And that's sometimes, I think, a barrier as well, because then you've got your massive big developers with, all of their system structures, people they know, money behind them, government, procurement again is an issue, for your smaller SMEs. So I don't know about if that's something that you're struggling with, but I also find that can sometimes be a barrier as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're constantly shooting ourselves in the foot, aren't we? I mean, it's we deregulate too much, and you end up with disasters like Grenfell, or you
Yeah.
regulate too much and nothing innovates and nothing happens, and you'll only get, what we've ended up having now is 10 big developers, and they're only interested in huge, colossal developments, because that's what makes them the most amount of money. This is a capitalist world, and I understand that. But the problem is, all the SMEs are being shoved out because they never get an opportunity to work, because the
Yeah.
planning system is not is not good enough, and it's broken. So all the SME businesses, or building businesses, can't build small small plots or new houses in sort of infill lands because it's just not viable.
Yeah.
And no one wants, 1,000, 3,000, 4,000 homes, at the edge of their village, because it completely decimates the community, and they don't
Yeah.
have the infrastructure in place to actually, support that kind of development. This has been happening for 15, 20 years. So it's not just the previous government's fault; it's the government before that. And now we're at this sort of point where we're now the government's been forced into building 1.5 million homes, and now there's not the skill sets, there's not the materials, there's not the land that's available that people are willing to build onto.
Yeah.
And our population is growing, and it's not necessarily organic growing, but mostly from migration.
Yeah.
You kind of can't make this kind of stuff up. And it's
And
just
I kind of,
it boils down to poor leadership again.
yes, yes. I mean, I like the idea of like regenerative leadership. I don't,
Yeah, I mean it's thinking more long term. I mean, regenerative leadership really looks at what does
exactly.
society really need, and looking at how it harmonizes, let's say, with the environment. What's the social impact on locally or within the community or within society. It's really looking at a longer term strategy, and instead of the environment being, we're at sort of war with the environment now. It's just one thing that's actually keeping us alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's, I mean, I always say, I was talking about it yesterday and I was like saying, things have got to change. And somebody challenged me a bit on that actually. He was like, but do they have to change? Is that obviously things are going to be better? It would be better if they do change, but do they have to change? And I'm kind of like, I get where you're coming from for that with that,
Well, if
but
you've got
I
a
feel,
home and you're not in persecution and you're not hungry, then you don't need to change. But 50% of the planet is hungry. They have no home and they're being persecuted. So of
yeah,
course they have to change. They have to
yeah, I
change
know.
for the better.
I
We live in a
think
very privileged world in the United Kingdom or in Europe. Most of us have homes, but most of us aren't hungry, and not most of us aren't thankfully being persecuted. But that's not
no, and this is,
necessarily
and
what's
that's
going on in the
really,
real world.
yeah. I've tried to talk to my children about that a little bit as well because we get there's a lot of protests locally, because of the migration, immigration, and trying to explain to them that the bigger picture on it all and what's happening out there in the world because we can get so and it's the same. I mean, this is the same principle, in terms of we get so fixated on just this bit, and we need to be thinking like this.
Yeah,
And
we need to
that's
think
and that
bigger
comes
picture.
down to and that's exactly what I mean. And that's exactly what you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to like regenerative leadership. We need to
Yeah.
be thinking so much more
Well, look,
forward.
I mean, look, everything starts. The society in the world would be a much better place if we all had nice homes to live in, and it's not just
Well,
nice,
that's safe. Yeah.
but globally as well. I mean, if people, you wouldn't have mass migration if there was a reason for them to leave. I mean, these people, it's pretty extreme them having to leave their homeland. If they maybe had better homes or houses or better prospects or a compelling future, then maybe they might stay. That's the problem. Just stopping people coming here is very, very difficult, as the government's proved. But let's look at the cause of reason why they're coming here in the first
Yeah.
place is because where they're living there is no compelling future. And if you have no compelling future, then you're going to go and try and find a future. But if you maybe give people a home and a job, let's say, then they might end up staying. So that's part of what our product does. The BioSit product is that that there's 80% of the globe can grow hemp or flax. We have an abundance of plastic. So
Yeah.
we can set up
Use it.
little micro factories all over the world, making lots of small little homes. And this could actually stop, this migration, and it's going to get worse as the climate gets more harsher in large parts of the world, where it just can't sustain life. And unfortunately, it's going to be pushing us all into Europe because our climate is moderate compared to a lot of other parts of the planet.
Yeah. I mean, super. I think, just it is, it's a mindset shift. I think we're just still so conditioned to think that we've got to do things the way that we always have. But this is why we need to be, thinking about diversity. We need to be talking about
Yes.
this, and not just gender diversity. I'm talking about, we need more of the younger generation coming into the industry. We need, diversity across the board. That's how we're going to change things. That's what I truly believe. I don't believe things are going to, progress the way they need to until we kind of, look at it from that angle. So it's looking at top down and bottom up. But thank you so much, Justin. That's been really insightful, and I'm hoping that anybody who's listening, can really start to think about things a little bit differently and understand more about the biosip and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Can you let listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, well, they can find us on www.bio-sip.co.uk. Obviously, we're on social media. Please get in contact with us if you want any more information, or follow us on our social channels. Cube Buildings, which is QUBE, and then buildings.co.uk. You can also find our sort of smaller range of buildings on there, all very reasonably priced.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And that's the key as well, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Great thing to end on there, though, about it being affordably priced, sustainable and affordable.
Yes, and passive.
Yeah, and passive. No, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who has been listening. If you've enjoyed the episode, please make sure that you do leave us a 5-star review, and that you do share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, anybody that you think would benefit. And I will see you here next time.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us in celebrating the trailblazing women in construction. Today's discussions have not only illuminated the remarkable contributions of our guests, but have also reinforced our commitment to fostering a workspace that honours diversity, champions equality and nurtures innovation. Through our collaborative efforts with the Facade Collective, we are reminded that every contribution in construction is a step towards a more inclusive and equitable industry. Let the stories of these courageous women inspire us all to continue building a future where gender is no longer a barrier to success, but a testament to our collective strength and diversity. Until next time, let's keep pushing boundaries, breaking barriers, and leading the charge towards a more equitable and inclusive world.